How's it going, everyone? Yosef back here with another video, and I hope you're having an amazing week so far. Today we are back with the Rivian R1s because it is a special vehicle, and I wanted to spend some time today just sharing with you some of the really cool things about the car. Now, there are a lot of SUVs out there, and there's a lot of electric SUVs out there, and I think it's important to take a look at some of the unique features that the R1s has over some of its competitors, and it's a great way for us to deep dive and talk about the things that I love, some of the things that I wish were a little different about it, and what I think overall of the Rivian R1s, and whether it's something that you should be considering as your next vehicle. Are you ready? Let's go. Alright, so the first thing that I want to talk about today is the looks of the R1s. And I think that's important because, you know, the first thing that you see when you see a car is the look of it. And I think the Rivian R1s has something very cool about it because it looks like a normal SUV in terms of the proportions and the size. But what it does is it gives itself a really unique look. There's nothing else on the road that has that light signature that looks the way it does when it's driving along the road. And it's got a really nice, cool, boxy shape. It still has some curves to it. And so it sort of blends between some of the different styles that you see out there in terms of the SUVs. And I think personally, it's something that looks really nice. It's not offensive. It's not in your face too much. It's subtle. And it has a really cool, refreshing look to it, something different that people haven't really seen before. And talking about the exterior of the vehicle, there are a lot of really great options that you can get with it. There are a lot of different colors that you can choose from. There are different trims that you can choose from. And I'm going to put some information up on the screen now just so you can get an idea of all the different specs for the Rivian R1s. And one of the really cool, unique features is when you get the top trim, you get the really performance model, you'll notice that the Rivian badge is sort of lined with this yellow just along each letter, and that's how you know you've got the special one. And you'll also see that it's color matched with the brake calipers in the front and the rear of the car, which to me is really cool. It's just a subtle way to say, look, I've got the special performance model and not just the base model. Another cool feature of the Rivian R1s is the fact that because it's an electric vehicle, it has to have a charge port door, and a lot of electric cars nowadays have charge port doors that are just a little boring and uninspired, but Rivian has done a really great job integrating the charge port door with the vehicle body lines. And when you just sort of press this button over here, you'll see it swings open electronically, which is really cool. It's got a little bit of drama to it, and you'll see you've got the charge port over there, and it's compatible, of course, with Teslas as well, so you can see the different charge port options that you've got. And when you're ready to close it off, all you do is just tap that little spot again, and it whirs away closed. Now, if we take a look also at the door handles of the Rivian R1s, it's got a cool way of doing things. Instead of a traditional door handle, you've got this sort of piece that pops out, this lever, and I think it's really cool. This is something that probably in my mind is a bit controversial because I love the flush design when it's closed and locked, but in the winter when things get a little cold and icy, I don't know how easy it's going to be to open this up, but if you're not in an area that deals with a lot of snow and ice, this probably will never be an issue. But when you do unlock the car, it's nice to have this great handle to open up. It makes it super simple, unlike some of the other competitors out there that probably are not as simple to do with one hand. And then as we move inside the Rivian R1s, you'll notice there's some really nice quality materials here. I really like the way that they've designed the door card. It's not just one piece of whatever material it is, leather or plastic. You've got all these different types of shapes and colors, and it really gives you a premium feel, especially with this wood. And it's hard to explain it when you're not here feeling it, but it's a very rich texture. It's an open grain wood, and from my understanding, this is reclaimed wood, so it's not like they tore down a tree to be able to do it. And those are the types of little details that I think are just so cool and allow the car to feel a lot more premium than some of the other vehicles in its class. And even when you look at the speaker grille, there's a lot of details in there. You've got the Rivian logo as well, which I think is really unique. And even the door pockets are not just regular door pockets, they actually open and close. So you can expand them if you need to fit something a little bit bigger, just like when you're sitting in an airplane. As we move a little bit further inside the car, you'll notice that the seats also have a beautiful design to them. They're very premium feeling. And the seats are really cool too. When you look at all the stitching and piping and all the little design features that they've built into it, you've got the Rivian logo in there as well. And the seats have a really nice perforation and this sort of oval type design that is almost like what you see in the headlights, just horizontal instead of vertically standing up, which I think is kind of cool. And the seat quality feels really nice. It's not super soft like you would a very high-end leather, because this is a vegan leather, but the seats themselves are very supportive and very comfortable. And you've got the seat settings over here along the side of the seat as well, which I think is really important, because not everything you want to have done through that center screen, and those are some of the physical buttons that honestly I really enjoy having in a car. Now, sitting in the driver's seat of the Rivian R1s, you'll notice that you've got a really beautiful screen just in front of you. You also have a really nice infotainment screen over here. And both these screens, I have to say, are really high resolution. It's something that I really appreciate when you get into a car. I hate when you get a new car nowadays and the screens are, you know, they leave something to be desired. But Rivian's done a great job. They put very high resolution screens. The colors are great, the brightness is great, the sharpness is great, and it lends itself to just a great experience. And when you take a look at it, it also has very much of a tablet feel. Everything is controlled from here, and you have the ability to sort of touch things and move things around in the same way you would an iPad or your phone. And to me, that's really cool because it allows you to engage with it in the same way you would with every other device that you have. And so you feel right at home with it. And the great thing is they also have all these buttons at the bottom that allow you to make sure that when you're trying to do the things that are most important to you when you're driving, you've got them available for you just down below, and you don't have to go and search for them too far in all these hidden menus. So you want to deal with all the different ride heights and the drive modes, well, you've got those over here. If you want to take a look at your navigation, you've got one click away, or your music or the cameras, everything is here and super responsive. Now, when you take a look at the climate controls, if we press this little button over here on the screen, it brings everything up. And the great thing is you've got all the features, of course, for the climate controls, but you also have these little sort of movable sections that pop up. And this is how you can control where the airflow goes for the HVAC system. And it is really cool, and it looks really neat when you do it, and it works very well when you play around with them. The one thing that I really don't like about that is, you know, sometimes you're driving and you feel a little bit cold and you want to just move things away from you. It's not so simple. Now you've got to click a button here and really pay attention to where those sliders are so that you can adjust where the airflow comes from. Now, they've done a really great job of sort of hiding the air vents around the car, which I think looks really neat, and it's a beautiful way to integrate it into sort of the layout and the feel of the car. But I wish there was just a little knob or something that you could play around with that allows you to move where you want the air to flow from, because that's something that, in my opinion, you touch quite a bit. And because you see the vents, I feel like it wouldn't detract too much by having a little knob that you can shift around. But nevertheless, it is really easy to go and play around with it. And you can also change the settings for the different rows within the car, whether you're in the front, the middle row, and you can see that you can play around with it there, and also have sort of a view of where the air is coming from in the back as well. One last note about the climate controls, there is also a pet mode in the Rivian R1s. People may be familiar with that when you've got a Tesla, but you can do this as well. So when you want to just get out of the car for a few minutes and not have to worry about taking your pet out, you can turn this on, and that way you've got the air conditioning set for your pet in the car and you don't have to worry about them overheating when you go away. Now, if we take a look at the storage within the Rivian R1s, you'll notice there's a lot of space down here, sort of just in the center console area. And that's great because it is an electric vehicle. You don't have to worry about a transmission tunnel or anything like that. So you've got a lot of open space over here. And you've got a center armrest area that also has a great charge port here if you want to charge your phone. You can even stick your phone in there if you'd like. All of your cup holders are just below as well. You can pop that open. You've got two really nice cup holders here. And if you want to have that extra space, all you do is fold it away. Now, even in the armrest, there's sort of these little electronic poppers that you press on, and that's what opens it up. And it opens up a lot of space in there. And again, you've got your USB charge ports in there as well if you're interested in putting your phone there. But it's a really nice deep space, and it gives you a lot of great storage. Now, you're probably thinking, Josef, I remember in the last video you said there wasn't a glove box. Well, Rivian's thought about what to do in place of that glove box because they don't have it where you normally would find it. If you take a look just below, there's a little handle over here just beneath the seat, and you can open that up and you've got some really great storage in there. And the same thing goes for the driver's footwell. If I just bring my camera over here, you'll notice there's another lever here, and we can open that up and you've got a really nice set of storage in there. And that to me is really cool. There's a lot of clever sort of packaging when it comes to the R1S. It looks really beautiful, it's very minimalistic, but it also has some really clever packaging that allows you to sort of use your R1S in the way that you might like. Now, when it comes to convenience and ease of use of the interior space, I think it's really great because it managed to give you a few buttons and a few little dials in places where you need it, but not putting too much around to just take away from the aesthetics of the vehicle. And the one really nice thing that we have here are the stalks. You've got a stalk to put the car in reverse, park, neutral, and drive. You've got a stalk here for the turn signals. But with the turn signals, it's kind of like the old BMW style where if you just turn it on, then it brings you right back to the center. So it's not as obvious to see that the turn signal is on. And the same thing goes for when you turn the other way. So you just have to remember, if you wanted to cancel or turn it on really quickly, either you just do sort of a half lift up or half lift down, and that gives you sort of that burst of turn signal without having to turn it on all the way. One last thing that I just wanted to touch on while we're sort of in the front of the car. There is a really great camera system here in terms of just the ability to see all around you. You've got a great backup camera, 360 camera, and you can change the different views if you wanted to have certain views of the vehicle, whether it's the front, the back, each side, or all around. Because this is an off-road vehicle, it's designed to be a lifestyle type vehicle. You've got really nice different views so that you can see where you're going if you're driving it off-road. And with that, you also have a lot of great off-road settings. And to me, that is really cool because if you did want to take it off-road, you've got the ability to change a lot of really great settings in the car. And you can change the ride height, you can change the different settings for the drive modes, you can change the feel of the suspension, the regenerative braking, and all of that really great stuff. So to me, I think this is a great vehicle if you want something that's going to help you sort of go on-road and off-road, but it's also a really great car that you can play around with. You've got a lot of different settings that you can choose from. And to me, that's really cool. And as you change the different settings, if we just sort of click on them, you'll notice there are some really cool animations. And the car will actually raise and lower depending on the setting that you've got it in. So here it's sort of the middle height, but if you go in the sport mode, it's going to go all the way down to the bottom, and you'll see the ride height goes down considerably. And it does that really quickly. And having that ability to raise and lower the car is a really great thing because if you're, let's say, carrying a lot of groceries and you want to lower the car and not have to maybe step so high to get in or put things into the trunk, you have the ability of changing that ride height independent of the mode you're in. And that to me is really cool. And under all the off-road settings, you'll see you've got a lot of different options here. You've got the rock crawl, you've got soft sand mode, you've got all-terrain and rally and drift. So you've got a lot of really cool things that you can play around with if you did want to go off-road with this vehicle. Now, in my last video, I talked about some of the really cool hidden features of the car as well. And one of them is, of course, the flashlight that's hidden in the door. Very much a Rolls-Royce type of thing, having something that's hidden in the door. But I really love this flashlight because it feels very high quality. It's super bright, and it's something that just adds a little excitement to the car. And when you go on the inside as well, you'll find just in the middle of the center console area, you've got a speaker hidden over here. And we can pull that out, and you can take it with you. It's a Bluetooth speaker, and it also has a little light at the bottom if you want it to shine on your campsite. So for me, those little types of features are just so cool to have in a car, and it's something that you can show all your friends and show off when you go camping and things like that. But it's all those little attention to details that I really love. Now, if we close the front door and bring ourselves to the middle row of the car, you'll notice that those same materials that we had in the front seats are all here on the back as well. And that to me is really cool because not every car does that. A lot of manufacturers try to save a little bit of money and cost cut when it comes to the materials in the middle row or the back row. And that's not the case when you take a look at the Rivian R1S. And you've got some really neat pockets over here, just like when you go on an airplane, but they've got some really nice metal connections over here for those bungee cables. You also have the ability to hang a coat or a jacket up here with a charge port, and you've got this beautiful panoramic sunroof that goes all the way across the top, and another section for the third row. Not a lot of car companies care about the people sitting in the back row, but Rivian does. Now, when you fold down the center armrest, you'll see you've got some cup holders in here as well, which is really nice, and they look very premium with that sort of metallic trim that goes around it. Now, you're probably thinking, Yosef, how do I get to the back? Well, there's a really easy button that you can press up here, and you just touch it, and it sort of brings the seat forward and slides all the way to the front, and you'll notice there's a lot of room back here. And if I bring the third row seat up, you've got the same beautiful seats back here as well. And that's something that, again, is a really nice feature of the Rivian. And you've got a lot of storage back here for the third row, so they don't have to feel like they're being skimped out at just because they're sitting in the last row. Again, that leatherette material that's sitting back here as well. And again, it gives you a lot of versatility being a 7-seater SUV. Now, if we bring the seat back, there is one challenge that I find with the middle row. And that is, if you're doing this from the driver's side, this middle row is quite heavy from the driver's side. On the passenger side, it's not a big deal because it's only got one seat, but because we're doing it from the driver's side, you've got basically 2 seats that you're folding. And to fold the seats completely flat, all you do is lift that up and the seat folds all the way down. But the challenge is getting it back up. Now, I can't do it with one hand because it is a little heavy, and you've got to lift this back up and then lift the seat back up, and I wish it was a little bit lighter. One other thing that I wanted to mention about the middle row is you've got a really nice display over here as well. So if you wanted to change the climate control for the folks in the back seat area, you've got the ability to do that independently, and you've got those charge ports, and I really like that you have the ability to change the direction of the air for the middle row with those knobs, because you don't get that in the front seat. And some cars, like Tesla, they make you still press the touchscreen to be able to move the direction of the air vents. And so here we don't have that, which I really, really like. And there's a lot of space back here, and there's a lot of attention to detail in the back row as well. I mentioned the stitching and the same materials, but if we just look up here, even these little pulls have a nice sort of yellow material behind them. The lights that they have are really nice and soft. And the Alcantara headliner is a really, really nice touch as well. It feels very airy, and it just adds to the overall space and feel of the car. Now let's bring ourselves to the trunk area, because the cargo area is really unique and special. And when you take a look at it, it doesn't look like anything too exciting, but if we open up the trunk, you'll notice that it opens up in a split tailgate fashion. And what that means is you can open things up really easy over here if you want to just quickly throw something in. But if you press this button over here, it'll open up the bottom part, which allows you then to have, first of all, a much easier access getting into the trunk area, but it also gives you a section to just sit and chill and relax. So I can sit up here, grab a coffee, watch at a drive-in movie. You've got a really nice seating area over here, which to me is really cool. And of course, you're sheltered by the tailgate up there. And of course, for the third row, you also have that really nice sunroof that you can take a look at. And of course, you've got the air vents for the third row too, so you don't have to worry about sitting in the back and being very hot or cold, depending on the conditions of the weather. Now, in terms of storage, if we lift this up, you'll notice there's quite a lot of space in here, but there's actually a secret compartment just below. If we lift this up, you've got all this extra room down below, which is really cool because you can hide some stuff in there that you may not want other people to see. You can put your charging cables and other stuff in there, and you don't have to worry about that stuff taking up your normal cargo area. So it's almost like a 2-stage cargo section within the Rivian R1S. Rivian has also thought about some really cool tie-down opportunities. So you'll see over here, you've got this locking, sliding mechanism that allows you to move things around. And if you wanted to tie something down here, this is a really, really strong piece that allows you to do that. And of course, you've got one on the other side as well. And if you take a look just on this side of the storage compartment, you'll see there's some really nice options for power. And you can also lower the seats for the middle row from here. So for example, we had all the seats down back here, and we wanted to lower the middle row, all we had to do was press that button and the middle row seats will fold flat. And this is great because there's a tremendous amount of room back here, but the only trouble is you can't raise those seats with the push of a button. You have to physically go around and lift up each row of the seats, and that's something that's a little labor intensive. For me, for example, when I go out with my kids or when I go grocery shopping, I always like the ability to go and reach back and just lift up the seats if I need them in a pinch. In this case, we don't have the ability to do that, and that's something that is a bit of an oversight. I wish there was just a, I don't know, something that you can grab on to pick up that third row seat just to lift it up. Now, one last really cool feature is you've got a air compressor here built into the car, which to me is really awesome because so many times you go out with friends or with your kids to, I don't know, a beach, for example, and you want to blow up a ball or an air mattress, or you go camping or you go somewhere and you find yourself with a flat tire. You actually have an air compressor built into the car here. So you've got a really great way of filling up air and things that you need. And that means you don't have to go and bring an air compressor wherever you go. All right, one last cool feature that I'm going to talk about when it comes to the Rivian R1s is the frunk. Now, first of all, just take a look at the key fob. I think this is really cool because it's a carabiner and you can just put it on your belt. You don't have to worry about losing it. Of course, you have the ability of using your smartphone as a key, but you've got, of course, a power tailgate, but also a power frunk. And if we click on the button over here twice, it'll open up the power frunk. And if we take a look inside, first of all, you've got a massive amount of space in here, which is really cool. But the other great feature is when you lift this up, you'll see you've got even more storage space below. And this section over here, when I move the charging cables, can be used, if you'd like, as a cooler. You have the ability of throwing some ice in there or some drinks if you want to go camping, and you've got a little plug that you can lift up, and that'll then drain the water out, so you don't have to worry about going around with everything sloshing around in there. But it's a great way to go on a road trip. You can actually use this as your own little mini fridge when you go for a ride. Okay, let's go for a quick drive. So how does the Rivian R1s drive? Well, to be honest with you, it drives really, really well. It's not as complicated as you might think getting into an electric car and getting going. It's a very comfortable car. It's very easy to get along with. Everything is basically where you'd expect it to be for the most part, coming from a regular internal combustion engine car and going into an electric car. The things that you do have to get used to, of course, are going to be the screens and some of the lack of buttons. But other than that, I think those are things over time that you will get used to. I do wish we had sort of the little sliders that you can play around with the air vents, but apart from that, it's really not a big deal. And even the turn signals that are a little odd and something that BMW used to do a long time ago and did away with because, well, they reinvented the wrong wheel. It's not something that's a deal breaker or anything that's going to cause a lot of challenge for you moving forward. And the driving experience is actually really, really nice. It's super quiet in here. The seats are very supportive, very comfortable. It's easy for you to get a driving position that suits you. You've got a lot of space here and comfort for the armrest. And there's a lot of great visibility as well. When you look around, you've got really nice big windows everywhere. You've got huge door mirrors, and you don't have these massive blind spots on the A-pillar that you do get on a lot of big SUVs. And that's something that I think is really unique of Rivian's R1s. They've thought about all those things. When you're driving off-road, you have to have great visibility. And when you're driving on-road, that's a big important thing to have as well. You don't want to be driving around and not being able to see things when you're turning corners. And so that's something that I think is really awesome about the R1s in terms of design. You also have great cameras, and that even means when you're turning lanes or you put your turn signal on, you've got a little camera feed that goes into your screen that allows you to see your blind spots. So you don't have to worry about doing big shoulder checks if you don't need to. And so it just makes the driving experience a little bit more comfortable and easy to get along with. And one of the great things about it that I think probably everybody will talk about with electric vehicles is the performance. I mean, you put your foot down and you fly, and that's something that you'll never get bored of. It doesn't matter how old you are, whether you're 20 years old or 55 or 70 years old, I feel like you'll still enjoy having that added performance. No one is going to be able to gap you when you're going on the highway and you want to pass and get into another lane. So it's a really great thing to have, and it delivers it in an amazing way. So that's obviously a party trick of electric vehicles, but also of the Rivian. And speaking about sort of the performance and the way that you drive, it also has a really great regenerative braking system. And what that means is when you lift off the gas pedal, it'll actually slow the car down almost as if you were pressing on the brakes. And so when you're driving in stop and go traffic, you don't have to constantly move your foot from the gas to the brake. You can drive basically with one pedal. And I always thought that was a foreign thing. Why would anybody want to do that? But now that I've had some time with the Rivian R1s and with the Tesla Model X and a few other electric vehicles that I've driven, it really does make the driving experience a little bit more simple and easy and relaxing. Unless you're driving a performance vehicle and you really want to go super fast and you want to enjoy the engagement, changing gears, things like that, there really is no point in driving with both pedals. Why not just use the one pedal driving that you get with an electric vehicle? So that's something that I think is really cool. In terms of the driving experience as well, you also have really good suspension. It's not very harsh, it's not too soft, you've got the ability to play around with it, and that to me is really great because you're driving a very, very heavy vehicle. And a lot of times when you drive heavy vehicles, they make the suspension really heavy so that it controls the body motions and things like that. You don't really have to worry about that in the Rivian because you've got the air suspension, and it does a really good job of balancing between that sort of, we'll call it somewhat sporty feel, the more firm suspension, and the really soft suspension for going off-road and just doing the daily commute. So you can get in this car and really enjoy the drive. It's not going to feel too intense and hard on you. And it's a great vehicle for the family and for getting out and doing trips and activities. And that sort of brings me to my next point. Why would you buy a Rivian over anything else? And I think the big thing that I would like to sort of leave you with in this video is, a lot of people go out when they buy technology, when they buy cars or whatever it may be, they go with what most people buy. They just go with sort of the brand name, and everybody buys an iPhone, so we buy an iPhone. Everybody buys a MacBook, they buy a MacBook. You know, not a lot of times do we sit and think about very consciously what it is that we need, what we want, and what other options are out there that maybe we wouldn't have thought about. And Rivian is one of those options that I think a lot of people, especially in Canada, aren't necessarily aware of. And in my opinion, it's a big miss. Rivian developed a really great vehicle, and if you just go for a Tesla and you don't get a chance to drive the Rivian and test out all the features and play around with it, you're just kind of going with the grain and you're missing out on a really great product. And so even though it's not perfect and it's got some drawbacks with some of the quality of materials for the steering stalks and some of the annoying things with the touchscreen and not being able to lift up the back seats from all the way in the back and things like that, no car is perfect. Every car has its drawbacks. But if you spend the time to really think about the options that you have and look at options that are maybe outside of what you normally would, you might be pleasantly surprised. And Rivian is a great example of that. If you would have just gone for a Tesla and not tested the Rivian, I think that would be a mistake. At least that way, if you do test out all the options and you find, you know what, I really prefer the Tesla over the Rivian, at least you've made a conscious decision and you've tried everything out. So I hope that that's a really good life lesson for you in general. Always be open-minded to other options. Take a look at everything that's available for you so you don't just go with the grain and get what everybody else gets. I hope you found this video helpful and insightful. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'm excited to see you in the next video.